If you're not African, if you are not from Africa, if you are not an African person, then it is better if you can just scroll. You are not supposed to watch this video, because this video is for my African friends. Okay, this is gonna touch our hearts, and this is gonna question what we believe in. This is something that is gonna make you guys feel like you're being attacked, but it's not an attack on what you believe in. But I want us to establish something here. We need to come to one understanding. Okay, we need to come to a conclusion that is going to satisfy all sides, and that is whether you are a religious person, a traditional person, or non-religious person, whatever kind of the person you are. Okay, so today's topic is going to be about philosophy, and why is philosophy a very important subject, especially in today's generation, especially in the 21st century. Why is philosophy a very important subject? Now, you need to understand that when we are talking about things like this, when we're talking about words like philosophy, words like ideas, words like concepts, we need to understand, like, why do these words exist in the first place? Okay, why do they exist in the first place? Okay, so now let us start with the root cause of everything, and the root cause of everything is what we call a precept. Okay, a precept. Okay, so now what is a precept? The word pre simply means before something, right? So when we talk about a precept, we're talking about before you acquired any kind of knowledge, before you acquired any kind of understanding, before you acquired any kind of ideas, before you acquired any kind of philosophy that made you to live the way you are living today. So we are starting with the basic foundation, and that is the precept. Okay, so the precept is the foundation before you got any knowledge, before you got any understanding. So we're going to start from there. How did you acquire what you know? How did you acquire the knowledge that you know? How did you gain the understanding that you now have? How did you get to acquire the philosophy that you now believe in? Who is the root cause of your belief system? Okay, so some of you got information from people that were talking about things that they never even understand. Some of you got your knowledge based on what you heard on TV. Some of you got your knowledge based on what you read. Okay, the things that you were studying, that is where your philosophy, that is where the foundation of your understanding began from. Okay, so now from the precept we are going to a concept. Now, what is a concept? A concept is after you gain something, right? After you gain a certain understanding, certain knowledge, then you brought it together. All right, now you bring it together to come up with something. All right, that is a concept. That is why some people do not understand certain concepts. Okay, why does this concept exist in the first place? You understand? Some people do not understand those things, right? But it is all based on what you acquired at the beginning. When you acquired something, then you made it a concept. The concept just the ability to bring together something. You brought it together. You brought what you now know together so that you can come up with ideas. All right, now ideas are what we call ideologies. Simple. So when we talk about ideologies, we're talking about ideas. Okay, so now people begin to apply ideas on their concept. Okay, this is what I've gained, and this is how I've brought it together. Now, what are the ideas? How can we apply this? Okay, what is the application of this? So the application of that thing becomes ideas of people. Now, the ideas of people becomes the ideologies of people. Now, from the ideologies, from the ideas of people, from the ideas that you know, the ideas that you are trying to apply a certain concept, now you're going to come up with what we call a philosophy. And a philosophy is dangerous. Philosophy is very dangerous. Okay, why is philosophy very dangerous? Why is philosophy very dangerous? Because Philosophy is not just an idea. Philosophy is not just an idea. Philosophy is a way of life of people. Are you getting me? Philosophy is not just something that somebody believes in. Philosophy is the way of life of an individual. Somebody centered their entire life based on a certain philosophy, based on something. You understand? That is why whoever gave you that philosophy, whoever teaches you that philosophy, and you believe in it, you make it your belief system. And if that person was lying to you, your entire life becomes a lie. If that person was lying to you, if that person never knew what he or she was talking about, then that person created a dilemma in your life where you are locked up and you cannot escape. So you have to understand, okay, what sort of philosophy am I having? What sort of belief system am I having? Because it is from your belief system, from your philosophy, that behavior is expressed. So now we see different kind of behaviors, we see different kind of attitude. You know, maybe you are friends, you know, and each and every person has his or her own behavior, attitude. You understand? They express their attitude differently, they speak differently, they communicate differently, they say things different, they help each other in a certain way. And now you are asking yourself, you said, why do these people behave like this? Is because each and every person has his or her own philosophy, and the philosophy now begins to shape their behavior. The philosophy begins to shape their attitude. That we can apply that in traditions, we can apply that in tribes. How many tribes do we have in Zambia? 72 tribes in Zambia, maybe more than that. Okay, and each tribe express their tradition differently, their behavior differently. Each tribe celebrates their ceremony at a different time, and they celebrate that ceremony differently. They've got a different language, they've got a different taste of food, a different way of expressing things. You understand? That is philosophy. Okay, that is philosophy. So now you are asking yourself, like, how did these people came up with this philosophy? It's because it came from a precept. From the precept, it turned into a concept. From a concept, it turned into an ideology. From an ideology, it became a philosophy. It became a way of life. And the people are living their life based on that. They're centered on that. So ask yourself, what type of philosophy do you have? What type of knowledge that you know that you cannot let go? Some of you, for many years, the knowledge that you know has not been adding value in your life. The understanding that you have has not been helping you in any way, but you still cling on to that. You are still believing in that. Why? It is so hard to let go of a belief system that you have been believing in for years. You have been believing in this system for years now, for 20 years, for decades. And somebody comes up, a young boy like me, and begin to ask you to say, question your belief system. Question it. Question it. Question what you believe in. Why? Because for change to happen, people were questioning what was the norm at that particular time. Let's talk about Newton, for instance. How did theory of gravity came into existence? By questioning. Let's talk about Einstein. How did the theory of relativity came into existence? By questioning. Questioning what you believe in. How did people discover, they said, okay, the earth can rotate and the sun is still? How did people discover that? By questioning. Questioning what is the norm. Questioning what is believed to be the normal thing. Questioning them. So the only way you can change what you believe in is when you start questioning what you believe in. Why? And it starts with that question. Why? Why? Why is Africa poor? That is the question. Why is it that our politics are run that way? It's not about accepting what is there. It's not about accepting the norm. It's about questioning, why do we behave that way? Why do African politicians behave in the way they behave? Okay, why do people who grew up in the ghetto behave the way they behave? Why? Because when you begin to question that, that is gonna open a room for you for change, because change will never happen until you question what you believe in. Who told you just because you were born in the ghetto, then you are destined for failure? Who told you that? Who told you that for you to keep a woman submissive, then you must call her names or slap her? Who told you that? You must question what you believe in. You must question your understanding. Question the norm. Question the norm. Who told you? Who told you that the only way somebody can succeed is through education? Education can be an equalizer, but it's not the only way to succeed. It's not the only way to success. Question what you believe in. Question that. Because when you start questioning things that you believe in, when you start questioning your belief system, when you start questioning religion, when you start questioning all these kind of things, it's gonna open your mind. And the only way your mind can open is when you start questioning. Why do traditions say you're not supposed to question? Why do some religions say you're not supposed to question what is written? Because they know when you begin to question what is written, then you're going to find fault in certain things. You're going to find problems. Why did this happen? That is why God gave you a brain. The brain that you have is for questioning things. Questioning things. That is why you have got that brain. Question what you believe in. Question the education system. Question the system that has been running this world. Question the political system. Question everything, because that is the only way that you're gonna open your mind and leave room for change. Philosophy. Philosophy is dangerous. I wish I could articulate this in Nyanja, because I want a lot of people to understand, because some people just be skipping, you know. But I wish I can just articulate this in my local language, because I understand now that it is difficult to make a Christian understand certain things. Why? Because Christians already have a certain philosophy. So for you to make a Christian understand certain things, it becomes difficult. Let me ask you this question. The people that crucified Christ, who are they? People who understood the law. And what was the law at that particular time? The law of Moses, the 5 books, which is Leviticus, Chronicles, Numbers, etc. Those were some of the books that the Pharisees believed in. And you cannot become a Pharisee without understanding the 5 books of Moses, the laws, the Bible laws. You understand? And those were the same people that had battle with Christ. Those were the same people that were fighting with Jesus Christ. Why? Because Jesus Christ was making them to question the foundation of their belief system, and it becomes a battle of the mind. It becomes the battle of the mind. You begin to fight your mind. You begin to fight within yourself. This person is making me to question what I've been believing in for decades, for years. And this has been passed on from century to century. And why is it coming up with certain ideologies, certain philosophy that are different from what I believe in? Hence, he's not a true prophet. He's not a true prophet. And many of you, pastors, men of God, Christians, who believe in something, then somebody else comes up and asks you, question that. It becomes a battle. It becomes a fight, because you believe in something that you don't even know its origin. You believe in something that you don't even understand. That is why they fought Christ. Why? Because he had to question their belief system. That is why I love Jesus a lot, because he makes you to question what you believe. Question what you believe. It makes you to question something that you have been believing for years. Question your philosophy. Democracy. Let's talk about democracy. Who introduced democracy? The Greeks, right? Because the only people that studied human behavior at that particular time were Greeks. So human behavior, how to control humans, how to control them, how to keep them in shape. So they came up with the concept called democracy. And who are they? Who came up with this concept? Right? Aristotle, Plato. Those are the people that studied democracy. Those are the people that came up with this concept of democracy. Then from the concept of democracy, it became an ideology of a group of people, the Greeks. But from the Greeks, it became a philosophy. And from the philosophy now, it was adopted by almost all the countries. Zambia is a democratic country. Zimbabwe is. The United States of America. etc. Right? We all believe that our politics are run by democracy. We all believe that our elections are democratically. A president is elected democratically. Right? But what really is democracy? And does democracy really works? Have we ever questioned that? Have we ever asked ourselves that democracy works? African countries, most of African countries are democratic countries. Have you ever asked yourself, despite them being democratically, why do we still have a lot of countries in Africa that are facing civil wars, that are fighting each other, despite them called democracy, despite them being called democratic countries? Question your belief system. Sit down and begin to question things. Sit down and begin to question things. Because what is hard is not to change your way of life. What is hard is not to change the way you talk. You can talk in a certain way. You can change your accent. You can change your hairstyle. You can change the way you look. I'm telling you. But to change your philosophy, it becomes difficult until you go back to the foundation where it started from. Until you go back there, begin to ask yourself, why does this thing exist in the first place? Why does it exist in the first place? Begin to question that. Begin to question the very basic of your way of life, your attitude, the way you talk. I know a lot of people are going to ask me, what are you trying to say? What kind of message are you passing on? What sort of message are you passing on? My message is begin to question what you believe in. Because some of you were lied to. Begin to question what you believe in. Begin to question the way people interpret the Bible. Begin to question the way people want you to live a certain kind of life. Begin to question all that. Okay? Because it is only when you question that, will you leave room for change. Because change will never happen, my brothers and my sisters. Ladies and gentlemen, change will never happen until people begin to question. People begin to question why. The why question is very important. Why? Why do we live this way? Why do we have certain people that have got billions and we have got people in the street that are broke? People that are poor? People that cannot even afford a meal a day? Why? Why are some people printing money and yet in Africa we're still in debt? Why? Why? You have to begin to question that. Begin to question that. Why? Who told you what to believe in? Who told you that? Who told you that IQ is the only form of intelligence? Who told you that? Don't you know to say there's also social intelligence? Don't you know there's also what we call mental intelligence? Who told you what to believe in? Who told you that? Begin to question. Reading is very important. Studying is very important. A lot of people right now in the streets, a lot of people right now in compounds, a lot of people right now that are suffering in certain areas, those people have got a certain philosophy. Those people have got a certain philosophy. You are in the street right now because of what you know. You are in where you are now because of what you know. You are in your financial deficit right now because of what you know, because of what you believe in, because of your philosophy. Immediately you begin to change that, then you see change begin to happen. Change cannot happen at a faster rate, but change happens gradually. But with time, change usually happens. So I want you to get this from me. Change is very important, but it cannot happen without you questioning what you believe in. Stay blessed.